This is Edge of the Box, a podcast brought to you by WhoScored.com.
Hello, welcome back to the Edge of the Box podcast, a podcast by WhoScored in association with Bet Victor. A few weary eyes on the podcast this morning, and I am joined as ever by Jonathan Wilson and WhoScored's very own Martin Laurence, age 12. Sorry, I made myself laugh and completely thrown myself. England are through to the quarter-finals. They've dispatched Germany, Jonathan. Unbelievable season. I'm not supposed to be starting with this, but I'm overall in the running order because I'm just still absolutely elated from the game.
Yeah, it was. I was watching it in probably the most downbeat circumstances imaginable in an incredibly sterile media room at Hampden on a TV that UEFA wouldn't turn on until 20 minutes had been played. So watched the first bit of the game on a colleague's laptop. Even that was difficult because UEFA Wi-Fi is Swiss. So even though you're in Hampden, all the plugs are 2-point plugs, although they do give you adapters. And the Wi-Fi is Swiss, so you can't watch the iPlayer or your Sky Go, because it's a foreign it's a foreign Wi-Fi you're connecting to, so you're geo-blocked. So my colleague had to use a dodgy VPN. I had tried watching it on my phone, and then the done thing in media centres is not to celebrate at all. It's very much frowned upon. And so there was when that Sterling goal went in, there was maybe, I don't know, half a dozen English journalists on the table I was on, and there was maybe the slightest flicker of a sigh of relief, but no more than that. So, but despite that, I was still incredibly tense. Not so much for England, because I have to say I'm not really a massive England fan. But I felt I'd sort of laid my own reputation on the line by going quite hard on TalkSport on Sunday, saying that I believed Southgate should play the back three and he should play Saka on the right, for which I took loads of abuse. And Southgate got it right. He followed my advice to the letter. And I was vindicated, and the public should learn to trust me, and him, mainly him.
Yeah, an excellent 24 hours for Gareth Southgate and Jonathan Wilson. Martin, are you well, despite what you've done to your face?
Very well, thank you. Yeah. Like I said, my kids have the exact same opinion. Just what the hell have you done? And my wife. So, it's not gone down well in the Laurence household either. So, it only takes me about 10 years to grow it back, so it's fine.
10 years, you'll be what, 14, 15?
Let's crack on with the show. We will come on to England in more detail later. But Martin, we are going to start with the last 16 best 11 roundup, and I'm hoping you have it because I do not.
I do indeed. It's not a team that maybe you would predict going into those games, but we couldn't really predict anything from those last 16 games, could we? So it is different to what you'd expect. But it is. We have got it in a 4-4-2. It's Thibaut Courtois in goal. Had a very good game. There were a few contenders for that. Obviously, Pickford was very good as well. But a few contenders for that spot. But he played very well. Azpilicueta is the right back. First goal for Spain for him. That was nice to see. And maybe the least surprising is Joachim Mæhle at left back from that team of the round. He was outstanding against Wales. The centre-backs, again, lots of competition here, and it's probably going to go against the grain, but it was Thomas Kallas, who was excellent against the Netherlands for the Czechs, and it's Francesco Etierbi for the Italians rather than Stones or Maguire. Maguire actually got our man of the match for what it's worth last night. Again, a few contenders for that, but I thought he was excellent again. And then the midfield four is Ferran Torres on the right, Zinchenko on the left, and Pogba and Thomas Holles in midfield. And the front two is Kasper Dolberg and Haris Seferovic. Seferovic and Benzema, there was 0.01 in it, so that was really tight. But
yeah, we won't be seeing Benzema again, despite his absolutely glorious goal. What's a goal? I've got to say, Jonathan, that round of 16 was incredible. So many highlights, so many good games, so many great moments.
I think maybe the best international football I've ever seen. And I don't know. I always worry about saying things like that because I think so much is dependent on personal circumstance that I think we all tend to sort of value the World Cups or the European Championships we see when we're just getting into football between the ages of, I don't know, like 7 and 12 or whatever. They're the ones that are really special. That's when we suddenly realize, Christ, there's an amazing thing out there. But this is the first tournament where until yesterday, I hadn't been to any games. I've been doing everything off the TV for various bureaucratic and COVID-related reasons. And so it is a different dynamic. Watching it on TV is much more relaxed. You're not racing about between venues. And being at Ukraine-Sweden last night was incredibly stressful, because not only was I having to file a report on the whistle, which includes having to file a report on 90 minutes saying the wait for England goes on to find out who they have to play, which is ludicrous. Nobody needs to read that, but that has to go out in second edition. So people in, I guess, Cornwall would be reading that this morning. Just go online, lads. The results there. And then I had to get back from Hampden to Glasgow Central to get the sleeper. So literally, as that goal went in, the winning goal, raced out to Mount Florida Station, joined an enormous queue there. I say enormous queue. I guess thank goodness only 12,000 fans there. Have been 55,000. I'd have been absolutely screwed. Ordering Ubers, which obviously weren't coming because there's so many people about. Thinking, well, whichever comes first, trainer Uber. Eventually got on the train, and I caught the sleeper by 10 minutes. But I was having to file my rewrite from that train. So if that had gone wrong, I suspect my opinion of the last 16 would have been quite different. But thankfully, I had this euphoric moment of kind of getting on the sleeper and ordering a lager and drinking a lager in bed as we sped south through Motherwell. And so I don't know what other people thought of that Ukraine-Sweden game, but I actually really enjoyed it. I thought the second half was really end-to-end and really tense and really good. With this sort of a low extra time seemed to go on forever because of all the injuries, but then this great sort of release at the end, because if it had gone to penalties, I wouldn't have made that train. So yeah, I thought it was 8 games that all of them in their own way were remarkable. I mean, okay, you might say the Denmark-Wales game wasn't particularly thrilling, but Denmark still played really well. It was still a good performance. So I don't really think there was a dud one out of the 8. I think it was, and the Monday's football was astonishing. Not just 14 goals, but twists and turns. The great favourite going out. The whole thing was magnificent, and it made fools of those of us who'd said this might be quite a boring, fatigue-ridden tournament. I don't know if fatigue is affecting it, but if it is, it's affecting it in the right way, and everything's just sort of gone a bit crazy, and it feels very fluid, and that none of the patterns we thought existed actually do exist.
I mean, I sat and watched the Sweden-Ukraine game last night, and I wasn't even drinking, but I've got literally no memory of it whatsoever because of England and just feeling all over the place. After that, I was going to ask you what you made of the 11, Jonathan, but you've probably forgotten it by now. I mean, you won't be having the formation, I'm sure, 4-4-2. We can't be playing that in the modern day, but agree with the team?
Well, I guess the one who stands out is Pogba. I think he's the big talking point, because that was I think that game summed up all the issues with Pogba. That I thought he was pretty much anonymous in the first half, and we know that he's not as comfortable in a 2 as he is in a 3. The second half, he scores a brilliant goal, 3 or 4 sensational forward passes to create chances or create the chance to create a chance, and then he cost them equaliser. And so I'm afraid I'm with Patrick Vieira and Roy Keane and Graham Souness and Veronique Rabiot on this, that you just can't be doing that. If you're a holding midfielder, or one of 2 holding midfielders, and you're 3-2 up with a minute to go, don't be giving the ball away 40 yards from your own goal. Whatever else you've done well in the game, you've just ruined it. And the problem with that is when you've had a celebration for your goal, which had like several parts. I mean, I've seen operas shorter than that. Then inevitably people are going to go, well, maybe if you've been a bit more focused on doing your job rather than doing a series of dance routines, maybe that doesn't make any difference. I don't know, but it looks really bad. It looks like you focus on the wrong bit of the game. And I think if you're going to play deep in midfield, you have to have a slightly utilitarian mindset, because that's what the job is. And so Pogba's not the only one at fault, but ultimately everything he did well was ruined by that one moment. So I would not have him in my team. No.
You know what I'm going to say, Martin?
I mean, I wouldn't have him in a 2 to start with.
Gilmore, that's it. I was going to say, Jonathan, last episode, Jonathan was slating Souness, saying Pogba could be the player of the tournament, and now he's gone back, gone sided with Souness now on the. You can't celebrate. one goal 6 times, which I agree with, to be fair. But
the thing, you see people on Twitter kind of, obviously that's not a good start to any argument, but you see people on Twitter saying, oh, yeah, people who just want to see Pogba fail, who are just waiting for him to fail. Yes, I'm waiting for him to fail because I've seen him do it so often. And it's not what I think. And I'm certainly not somebody who thinks we should always just accept what pundits say at face value and never challenge it. But when it comes to the issue of being a holding midfielder, and Souness, Vieira, and Keane are all saying the same thing, I think maybe we can't dismiss that. Maybe we do have to listen to that. Especially because I agree with them anyway. So the arrogance of people on Twitter to suggest that kind of, these three greats are all just wrong. You've at least got to make an argument as to why they're not. But we see it again and again. Pogba does brilliant things and then he undermines them.
Yeah, his passing was absolutely sensational. That volleyed pass he did was just unbelievable. It's such a great pass. But we won't be watching him again, Martin. It's always a bit sad when obviously the good teams go out, but Switzerland thoroughly deserved it in the end. But that's the favourites gone, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And to be fair, like France, they didn't look like favourites throughout that tournament, really, other than maybe the game against Germany when obviously they controlled that game without having control, so to speak. And they managed that game very well. But 3 draws since then in normal time. So yeah, they didn't really merit their favourites sort of tag at the end of the day. I think people probably overlooked the fact that they aren't this sort of team that goes and steamrolls opponents, even though on paper they were the best squad, but look at their sort of results and they're nothing special. And there isn't a team that's special at this tournament in terms of results, arguably aside from Italy of late. So they're probably now I think England are the favourites with the bookmakers, but Italy will be a lot of people's favourites for good reason. But even they came a little bit unstuck, got very fortunate because obviously that Arnautovic offside was very, very tight. They could have lost that game.
Yeah, I feel a bit like Gareth Southgate at the moment. I feel like my management of the show is going to be questioned a little bit because this last 16 roundup was supposed to be 3 minutes and we've already gone way over. But I wanted to talk about it. I'm overruling the running order and I'll claim the time back. Let's talk about England v Ukraine then, Jonathan. I mean, obviously you weren't watching it in the best conditions, but it was an excellent performance by England and Southgate did get it spot on. Everything he would have planned happened.
Yeah, I mean, the first 10 minutes or so, they looked pretty edgy. But once they got over that, I thought, they essentially controlled the last 80 minutes of the game, with the exception of Raheem Sterling laying one on a plate for Thomas Müller. But that's not a structural issue. That's an individual mistake by a player who has a lot of credit in the bank. And, overall yesterday, was clearly excellent, apart from that one horrifying moment. So I think it did work. I think keeping Germany at arm's length, introducing Grealish when the game begun to break up a bit and a bit of space there. And I thought the incredible thing was that Germany's wing-backs, who'd been such a feature of how they played, certainly against Portugal, to a lesser extent against Hungary, they were barely in the game. Luke Shaw is a player I've not been entirely convinced by in the past, but his job in kind of being involved in both goals, but actually I think more significantly for the game in keeping Joshua Kimmich quiet, I thought absolutely extraordinary. So I guess the question now is, does Southgate keep going with the back three? Ukraine yesterday, I thought what they did incredibly well was switch the play between the wing backs. So that would suggest to me immediately, yes, just stick with the back three. Yeah, you've stopped Germany's wing backs, now stop Ukraine's wing backs. So Yarmolenko obviously is the creative hub of that team. I thought Shaparenko in midfield, playing slightly deeper than he had done previously in the tournament. I thought he looked good, although he tired very quickly. I mean, he was taken off after, an hour, 60 odd minutes, which allowed him to get Malinovsky on. So they do have options there. But I think fundamentally, if you can shut down the wing backs, then you shut off a supply to Yarmolenko, because that link up between Karavayev on the right and Yarmolenko was the key all the time. And actually, it was a slightly strange game because everything Sweden did went through Forsberg, so everything was happening on one side of the pitch. I I sort of have it in the back of my mind, this idea that Southgate might have always planned to switch to a back three once he was through the group, or at least once he played a major team. And I think Southgate's somebody who spent a lot of time studying past tournaments and working out how you win a tournament. And a lot of that's been studying France and Portugal, which obviously hasn't gone so well for the two of them. And so there's a danger, and you think, well, is he fighting the last war? But I don't know how far back he's looked, but what Alf Ramsey did in '66 was he tried out the 4-4-2 in a friendly in Spain in December '65, and England were brilliant, won that game, I think 2-0, which Ramsey hit it away, and he went back to normal 4-3-3. And then the very last pre-tournament game, which is away against Poland in Wrocław, and obviously this is a time before everybody's watching videos, everything. So if you're playing a game of Wrocław, you can be pretty sure nobody's watching it. He played the 4-4-2 again. He did it away for the group stage. He played either Peters or Ball plus a winger, so Callaghan, Connolly, and Payne. And then as soon as he plays Argentina in the quarterfinals, he unveils the 4-4-2, which he's only actually played in 2 games until then. So I wonder if Southgate had something similar in mind, that he played the back three last year. He got that really good result at home against Belgium. With the second half of that game, I thought England were really, really good. And then in March, he went back to the 4-3-3. And okay, maybe that was just a slightly easier game, San Marino, friendly against Ireland, Poland. But the fact he stuck with that through the group stage, I wonder if the thinking was, well, get through the group stage, not that bothered about how we play as long as we get through it, keep it tight, that'll probably be enough. And then the real stuff starts, the tournament starts when we get against big teams in the knockouts, and that's when we go back to the back three, and we can get a little march on teams we'll have been practicing it, but they won't have been seeing us play it.
Yes, so much goes into it, Martin. I mean, he did get everything right. I mean, not Jonathan, but a lot of people were asking questions of him before the game. I hold my hands up and say, I looked at that team and thought, it's a bit safe, only 3 attacking players. I'm not sure about that. But to have the armoury that he had on the bench, and then actually to bring the right player on for the game. I mean, you looked at the bench, Sancho, Mount, Foden, Grealish. To get Grealish on and change the game in the way he did is huge. And Gareth Southgate has managed that day and the tournament so far really well.
Yeah, I'm not going to question him anymore. I just won't do it.
No.
just won't do it. Just because if you look at the big decisions that he's made, or the big calls that he's made, the unexpected calls in many cases, Trippier left back in that first game worked. Saka over Sancho in the third game. I think everyone overlooked Saka. Worked.
Yep.
Back three in this game worked. There's not really, you can't really question him anymore. I know he'll still have his doubters, but I'm not one of them anymore, that's for sure. I just think every sort of potential problem or thing that needed answering going into the tournament has almost been answered now. I think like there was no real question that Pickford would play, but Pickford's been outstanding.
Yeah.
I looked into his stats. Obviously, he has been error prone for Everton. I looked into it. Since he made his England debut, he's made 14 errors leading to a goal for Everton in 143 appearances. For England, 35 caps, no errors leading to a goal, which is very, very good. And we did the combined 11 with the Germany, and that was based on international appearances this year. And understandably or unsurprisingly, the fact that we had Pickford over Neuer got absolutely slated. But Pickford hasn't conceded a goal in God knows how long. Germany haven't kept a clean sheet in 7 now. So it's not really surprising, is it? And he made that really strong save against from that brilliant Havertz shot. Maybe one you'd expect him to save, but still a great save. And he just, more than anything, they said it in the commentary, he actually looked like a bit of a calming influence.
Yeah, that's what surprised me.
Never think that.
And the other thing with in terms of calming influence, and I think where Southgate got things wrong at the World Cup was his in-play decisions. So I thought against Colombia he needlessly invited pressure. I thought he was very slow to react against Croatia. But here, 2 key substitutions in the second half. One, bringing Grealish on, turned the game, increased the tip of the game, increased England's momentum in the game, opened the game up. And then, last couple of minutes, just in case things are getting a little bit hairy, you bring on Jordan Henderson, a captain who in the last 2 seasons has won last 3 seasons, has won the league and the Champions League. Somebody who's a great organizer, somebody who shouts. And that sounds absurd, but shouting to calm everybody down, make sure everybody is in position. That's a great thing to have to bring on 5-10 minutes to go, just to give everybody, just to galvanise them a little bit more.
Yeah, even that Grealish change, bringing him on for Saka. I know a lot of people didn't want to see Saka go off, but I thought it was the exact right call at the right time, because the game was in danger of going a little bit flat when he made that change. It sort of stagnated a little bit, and it wasn't Saka's fault, and everyone had sort of dropped off a little bit. We all got a bit cagey, but he had noticeably sort of, his influence had waned. And even though he got a lot of credit from the first half and looked really bright, I thought that was the right decision. And obviously Grealish, even when he came on, I thought he looked really nervous. I thought, like, you don't see Grealish have loose touches, get the ball stuck under his feet. And that happened on his first couple of touches. But it's, as much as anything with Grealish, it's the sort of fear that he strikes into opposing players. They can't go too close to him. They know they give away fouls. And he proved to be quite key in the end, even though wasn't outstanding. But the other thing that I wanted to point out was the discipline of Rice and Phillips on a yellow card, especially Rice, basically 90 minutes on a yellow card, which was actually atoning for an error by Phillips, who actually let Goretzka run through, and then Rice gets the wrong side. And like Jonathan says, that first 10 minutes, I was so worried. I was like, I thought it was more than edgy. I thought this is chaos at the moment, because we were getting overrun in there, and they could have easily sort of capitulated a bit, but they just settled, like the whole team. They just settled. And both of them they were just everywhere, just showed a huge amount of discipline. And I was only considering it in the game. They're up against Goretzka and Kroos, who have multiple Champions League winners' medals between them. Rice and Phillips don't have a Europa League appearance to their name. And it's just like, how is this happening? But then it's just the defensive solidity. I think we saw again that Toni Kroos in a 2, protecting that defence, just doesn't really work. And maybe that's where taking Kimmich out of that midfield proved to be problematic, but Germany didn't have a right back. So I think that was eventually their undoing. And surprisingly enough, England really did control that area of the pitch, and Rice and Phillips deserve a huge, huge amount of credit.
Yeah, Jonathan, this is actually a really intelligent and streetwise England team, isn't it?
I know. Such an odd thing to see. It's quite hard to adapt to. I mean, it's obviously taken England fans quite a long time to adapt to. But I guess this is one of the problems of international football, that it draws a lot of emotion. Every game is scrutinised in a way that not every club game is scrutinised. But also a lot of people watch England and have opinions about England who maybe don't watch a huge amount of other football. And so you get a lot of background noise, and one of the keys of being a national manager is the capacity to shut that out. And Southgate, I think, has done that almost. That side of the job, I think he's done almost better than anything else. If he fails, it will be on his own terms, and that, I think, is something you couldn't necessarily say of Roy Hodgson, who I think allowed himself to be bullied into going more attacking than he probably should have done in 2014.
Yeah, and Southgate's just seeing off things, Martin, that have troubled England, certainly over my lifetime and probably many other people's lifetimes as well. He's banished the penalty ghosts, and now finally as well.
Oh, easy, steady.
Well, okay, we won a penalty shootout. That's
two penalty shootouts.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, we'll have that. So there we go. That's banishing penalty ghosts.
They could easily come back.
No. Oh, God, bloody hope not. I still feel sick from Muller being through on goal last night, let alone a penalty shootout. And then the second thing now is, we have finally knocked out a big nation. That hasn't happened ever, or since Spain in Euro 96.
Well, and that was penalties. I mean, the last big nation England beat in a knockout tie was West Germany in 1966, with all due respect to Denmark in 2002.
It's just crazy. The Southgate, he's done so much behind the scenes mentally for England as well.
Yeah, I think a lot's been said about the sort of mood in the camp, hasn't it? And he's really good, and I think it's pertinent to look at his sort of coaching of the under-21s. Really, really good at dealing with young players and understanding sort of the youth of today without wanting to sound. But yeah, he's clearly got a close relationship with almost every single player in the squad, and he treats them all differently. And when it comes to international management, that's so key, isn't it? That sort of man management side of things, because you don't see them that much. You need to understand your players inside out, mentally as much as anything. And yeah, the harmony within the squad just looks great. And yeah, you can't really sing his praises enough from that side of things, even if there have been questions over tactics or whatever in the past, which he's now answering as well.
Yeah, but a thoroughly decent human being, I think. I mean, you can imagine him coming into Who Scored and putting his arm around a baby-faced Martin Lawrence.
It'll grow back, Martin. It will grow back. Give it time.
Yeah, he will really look after you. Right then, Jonathan, to finish the England-Ukraine preview / Germany review, any changes for Saturday?
No, I think probably not. I mean, no, I don't think there are any. I mean, you could say, is it worth being slightly more aggressive? But I just don't know which play you change. I think Mason Mount is unfortunate to miss out, but Saka has come in and done brilliantly. So you could make a case for Mount ahead of Saka, but Saka has done everything that's been asked of him. He runs beyond Kane, which I think is necessary. I think he links up well with Phillips. He does his defensive work well. So no, I think leave it exactly the same, assuming everybody's at peak fitness but one of the great things is that this is a squad, and so if somebody is at 70%, you don't have to try and force them through it. You can rest them, but assuming everybody's fine, then keep it exactly the same. The only slight thing, and this is a tiny detail, thing that surprised me yesterday was Calvert-Lewin not even being on the bench.
Yeah, that was strange.
Which I just surprised me. I thought his whole purpose in the squad was to give England an option to go long if they wanted to late on. But maybe they thought, that's never going to work against Rudiger and Hummels and Ginter. And because Germany are a slightly odd team. I had in my head they weren't a physically big team because they seemed terrible at set plays. And then I sort of looked it up, and I think of their starting 11, 10 are 6 foot or more. So
really?
Yeah, none of them are massive. Like none of them is more than 6'3", I think. So, but they're certainly not short. So it's purely an organisational thing. The chaos they had against Portugal with set plays, Maguire should have scored that header.
Yeah,
should have scored that header.
Yeah.
Had a really good chance from a header in the first half.
Target.
Yeah. So. I mean, is there any point bringing Calvert-Lewin onto the bench? Maybe, I don't know. But for the starting 11, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, Rashford seems to be the number 2 striker in this squad.
Well, I think that's fair enough in terms of. I mean, he's not like for Kane, but he would require less adjustment how you play were Kane to get injured.
Yeah. Any changes for you, Martin?
It's tough, isn't it? Because, like I said,
say what you want. I know. No. Go on, say it. Come on.
I wouldn't be bothered now by sticking what we had or by moving to a back 4 personally for this game, just because I'd see him going back to a back 3 against Denmark if they were to get through, or Czech Republic, should be said. But this game, I think they can afford to go back to a 4.
I really don't. I just think Ukraine was so good switching play to their wing backs. I think that invites pressure.
That's against Sweden, isn't it? It's against the different opponent.
I don't think Sweden are terrible, though.
No, they're a decent team, but they're a sort of functional team with very few threats. Like Jonathan said, everything went through Forsberg in that game. England have a lot more about them from an attacking standpoint. So I personally, I get it. I don't see a problem. Now I'm willing to stand back and say, look, we can do that against Ukraine, and I'm not bothered. We can sort of tailor our tactics to them. Personally, I don't think we need to. But yeah, I would maybe make a couple of changes just in terms of fitness. I think if we saw Rice cramp up, he hell of a lot of running in that game. So you'd be watching him. You'd be watching Trippier, who pulled up, didn't he, a little bit? I don't know if that was just a knock or whether he's got a slight problem. But the thing is, there's options there, isn't there? Reece James can come in for Trippier quite easily. Henderson can come in for Rice quite easily. So those are changes that can easily happen. And yeah, Mount possibly coming back. If we change back to a 4-3-3, then I'd see Mount coming back in. But yeah, conjecture now, I'm happy to stick with what we've got. But I personally think we can go to a 4.
Well, I think 3 at the back's here to stay now.
Possibly.
I can't see it going anywhere. The only change I can see James coming in for Trippier, And I'd probably say I can't see Mason Mount going 2 games without starting, so I could possibly see Mount in for Saka, but I'm not sure that would be the right move. But we'll see what Gareth Southgate does. Just before we do move on, Jonathan, just wanted to flag something up with you. I think you predicted England to go out in the last 16, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Dan's is looking pretty decent now.
Not looking bad at all. It didn't feel too clever when I said it, but I mean, to be honest, anything can happen, can't it? We've seen already in these Euros that there's surprises along the way.
I thought you were going to say nothing seems too clever when I say it. That's why.
I know. Jonathan doesn't seem too upset by his prediction. He's not dwelling on it. So we'll move on to the best quarter-final 11.
I've got plenty right. I've got credit in the bank here.
I mean, yeah. Oh, you're essentially Gareth Southgate's number 2, so yeah. We've got now our best quarter-final 11. So Martin, I believe you've got the statistical one from the Who Scored perspective, and Jonathan, you've picked yours with a little caveat. And I put the word caveat in because I saw someone made a comment about that we use that word in every podcast, so I won't use it again.
So the caveat is I decided to try and pick a player from each of the 8 teams, or at least a player from each of the 8 teams, because otherwise I just had a list of names. The keeper basically had 3 names, and I've ended up going for Jan Sommer of Switzerland.
Good goalkeeper, very good goalkeeper.
Courtois and Pickford were the other 2. Courtois, I thought was really good against Portugal. Pickford obviously hasn't let in a goal and has made probably 1 decent save in each of the 4 games, or at least 1 decent save in each of the 4 games. But Sommer, I thought, again, I mean, I guess maybe he wasn't great against Italy, but the games against Turkey and against France, although he let in 3 against France, I thought he was excellent. And I think he's got great presence, and he did well from the penalty. So Sommer in goal. The back 3, Kyle Walker on the right, and Maguire on the left. Obviously, haven't let in a goal. Maguire's so good in the air. Walker gives you enough pace that you can push up quite high and he can still cover. I was tempted to go with Stones and go for an all-English back 3 because, I mean, they haven't let in a goal, so you can't really fault them.
Good unit.
And you say, well, who else could I go for there? Bonucci, but he's not playing in a 3. Acerbi, the same.
Christiansen.
Yeah, Christiansen was the one challenging Walker on the right. I sort of feel there's been a lot of good left wing backs and a lot of good right sided centre backs, and not very many good left sided centre backs and not very many good right wing backs. So anyway, I ended up going Bonucci just on experience as my libero behind Walker and Maguire. The wing backs, I mean, left wing back. I was watching Switzer go, oh, well, there's no way I can pick anybody other than Zuba. And then you think, oh, hang on. But then there's Torgan Hazard, and there's Spinazzola, and there's Zinchenko, and there's Mela. So I've ended up just sticking with Spinazzola because I've had him in my team all the way through, and he's done nothing wrong. So he keeps his place. He's a man in possession. Then right wing back, I've gone Chifal. Though it could have been Meunier, who I think was excellent for Belgium. Then middle midfield, Jorginho was a man in possession, hasn't done very much wrong, but I just think the way that Busquets has changed Spain since he came in, and Busquets is a player I've loved for years. I thought he never quite got the credit he deserved back at Barcelona. Been quite critical of him the last 2 or 3 years, where I feel his lack of pace and physical intensity has been a bit exposed. But sitting in front of the back 3, I'm quite happy with Busquets there. It's harsh on Jorginho, but squad game these days. And Tomáš Holeš alongside him, who I sort of thought he was a converted defender. I didn't realise how good he was going forward, but he's been excellent going forward. So I think he gives you a bit of physicality at the back of midfield, gives you that thrust going forward. So Busquets and Holeš as the 2 deep-lying central midfielders. Centre forwards, Lukaku, I think that's obvious. He's just brilliant. I thought he was sensational against Portugal, despite barely touching the ball. Then on the right, Damsgaard, I think, has been really, really good. but seeing Yarmolenko last night, he was so central to everything Ukraine did, and also the need to have a Ukraine player. And I thought his pass for the Zinchenko goal was brilliant. So Yarmolenko on the right, and on the left, and I ummed and ahed over this, and I've ended up going De Bruyne, despite the fact he's barely played and may not play in the quarterfinal. But he's just a brilliant footballer. So it was sort of him or Sterling, really, on the left. Danny Olmo, but he's only really done that for bench. So I ended up going for De Bruyne. So the team: Sommer, Walker, Bonucci, Maguire, Chifal, Busquets, Holesh, Spinazzola, Yarmolenko, Lukaku, De Bruyne.
Good team. I'm imagining it's completely different to the Who Scored team, Martin. How many are the same before we go into it? How many have we got the same?
How many have we got the same? Let me just count what we've got. Ooh, two. Two, yeah. Different formation, so that's quite important, I guess. We've got it as a 4-3-1-2. And obviously this is based on our ratings in the tournament so far.
No one plays that formation.
It's based on our ratings, Dan. It's based on our ratings.
I know, but you want to see a real live formation.
I mean, it's a workable formation.
Busquets sits on your one. You don't get the ball at your front two, and we win the game out wide. I mean,
no one's played a 4-3-1-2, but ultimately, none of these players have played together either. So that's not really.
Ultimately, everything we're talking about doesn't really matter. It's irrelevant because those teams are never going to play.
Anyway, moving on. We've got Thibaut Courtois in goal, so that was obviously one of Jonathan's three. Closest to him for us is Pickford. Right back, we've got Azpilicueta. Centre back, John Stones is for us. He's the England representative in the team. And Christensen, who you named, obviously scored that worldie, and he was obviously influential in just changing that Wales game completely, ultimately by stepping actually into midfield in front of the back four. But that versatility was really key. He's had a great tournament. Joachim Mæhle does just pip Spinazzola to the left back spot in our team. The midfield three is an all Italian affair. It's Verratti, Jorginho, Locatelli is the midfield three in our side.
Verratti,
yeah. I suppose a little Roy Keane, like really.
No, I think Verratti's become a slight problem for Italy. I think they're better with Locatelli there.
I love Verratti. I think
Locatelli plays this next against Belgium ahead of Barella personally, but we'll see. I think Verratti's really important. Verratti, Jorginho, and Locatelli. De Bruyne in front of them. Obviously, he is going to miss the quarterfinal, but this is based on sort of his performances so far. And then the front two for us is Lukaku and Patrick Schick.
I mean, yeah, they're all good terms, aren't they? You can never really argue. You can never really argue with this. You question formations to the cows come home, but yeah, it's a good team.
That's a really balanced team. Personally,
I think what I'm going to say is in the comments. We'll go with let us know in the comments which team you think would win a football match out of the two teams. I'm going to say
two players playing for both teams.
We'll ignore that. We'll ignore that. It's a bit like when you play the same teams against each other on FIFA. We'll just completely ignore that the same players will be on the pitch. It's not humanly possible, but yeah, I'm just interested to see what the general.
So hang on. So the two who are on both teams are the two Belgians. Is that right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Good picks. I mean, you would have expected to be picking some Holland players, some Portugal players, perhaps. Well, maybe not Portugal. You'd have definitely, I think, been expecting to pick some Holland players anyways. But yeah, a few of the France players as well. The big boys have gone. At this point, we were supposed to have Sam Boswell from Bet Victor come and join us, but he obviously had a great night last night. not bothered to show up and do the odds with us. So, well, you know what? Let's pretend we're Bet Victor, because we were going to talk about like the winners markets and the best player markets, Golden Boot. All that's completely shifted now, hasn't it, Martin?
Yeah, just blown wide open, especially those player awards. You were looking at France players for the best player, really. They were all at the top end of that order. And the Golden Boot, you were looking at Ronaldo. You probably still are. I'm pretty sure he's still the favourite, but there's a couple of contenders in there now, isn't there? With Schick and Lukaku still only two back. I'm missing anyone else? Anyone else got three?
Sterling's two.
Sterling's got three. Yeah. Anyone else on four? Forsberg went out, didn't he? He had 4.
I think Morata's going to go on a run, I reckon.
Do you reckon?
No.
I was going to say he could get. He played really well, I thought, against Croatia.
He did.
But yeah, that's all shifted, hasn't it? Like both of those are really wide open now. I think we checked it before, and Raheem Sterling is actually the favourite in the sort of player of the tournament.
7-1. 7-1. I've remembered that.
Well done. Who needs Sam? Here we go.
I need him.
But yeah, that market is wide open, and I'm guessing you're not a fan of Jonathan's Verratti assessment based on your own bet.
I mean, that bet doesn't look too shabby now. The 66-1 shot that I went for last week for Verratti player of the tournament, that doesn't look too bad.
Not at all.
Jonathan, have you got any thoughts on the Golden Boot or player of the tournament?
Well, it's interesting that Martin said that he might come in for not for Locatelli, but on the other side of the midfield. I think Locatelli is really important for Italy. So maybe that is the issue that Locatelli is important to link the front and back of the teams, and you can still get Verratti in there instead of Barolo. So yeah, possibly. I mean, I'm assuming Italy and England are the two favourites.
Favourites, yeah. England
and I guess whoever. Oh, I suppose Italy are playing Belgium, aren't they? Which that's another one of the big three out. I guess. I mean, it's an obvious thing to say. I guess whoever comes through that game, suddenly they look hugely significant. What about Danes? Who would the lowest price Dane be?
I'm not 100% sure. I wouldn't want to guess, to be honest.
Kier was 12.
Oh, yeah, Kier, of course. Yeah, Kier is right up there.
Tell you what, Bevita, get my number.
Dan,
I can do this.
Well, I mean, Kier's obviously give us an emotional aspect there as well. That we can talk about football, but what he did in that first game is way, way beyond that. And maybe that should be taken into account, particularly if Denmark do. I mean, if Denmark go on to win the thing, then I don't think anybody would dispute that, would they?
No, yeah.
So yeah, maybe that's not a bad shout.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, let's face it, none of that kind of stuff is what we expected at all because so many people have fallen by the wayside in the last 16. Let's look at the rest of the quarterfinals now. Let's look at Belgium, Italy then to start. Probably on paper the best game, isn't it, Martin? Yeah,
although I think we've sort of seen two different sides. If you consider these sides actually met in Euro 2016. When Belgium were the massive favourites in that game, because no one fancies Italy at all because they had this really, really modest squad under Antonio Conte. Like, not a great squad on paper, and what he did with them was superb. And Jonathan's very own Manuel Giaccherini opened the scoring in that game. Sunderland legend. It's incredible how many Sunderland mentions we can get into a Euros show, to be fair.
They have so many random players.
Giaccherini and Pella on the score sheet, and a 2-0 win against what was sort of the golden generation. And if you look at that, from those lineups, 8 Belgian players that started 5 years ago could well start again, or have been starting this summer. Obviously, De Bruyne looks like he's going to miss out, whereas only two Italy players, and that's the two that you would expect, Chiellini and Bonucci. Other than that, the entire Italy team has changed, and that's quite pertinent, I think. Like, they've gone through that transition, and Belgium are probably coming up to that and haven't quite had to make it, but they will do soon. And we saw with Belgium 3 years ago, they sort of bemoaned France for playing a defensive tactic in that World Cup semi-final, and what they did against Portugal just sat in really deep and sprung on the counter, and it worked. But they were sort of outgunned by Portugal in terms of possession and shots at goal. But they did, to be fair, they did really restrict Portugal. And if there were any questions about Belgium, it was over their defence. And they did defend their box really well. They restricted Portugal. They were literally just crosses into the box and long shots, and just didn't pay off. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach this game, whether there is a role reversal of what we saw from 5 years ago when it was Italy playing the back three. Now Belgium are playing the back three. I think we've seen that with a lot of teams at this tournament where they've almost gone against the grain. England, we expected, maybe didn't expect them to be better going forwards than in attack, but on paper, the attack looked like the strength and the defence looked like a potential problem. It's been the opposite way around. And there's been a few teams like that, even like Switzerland, sometimes seen as quite a functional team. They've looked really dangerous. on the counter. So yeah, there's multiple teams who are sort of going against the grain, and none more so than these two. Stylistically, obviously Italy have undergone a complete change under Mancini, and they look great. So I think the big decision from this game will be whether Chiellini plays, whether he's fit, because he has to be 100% fit to play against Romelu Lukaku. So yeah, that's a big call. I think he will come back in, because the talk was that he'd returned to training ahead of the Austria game, and he just wasn't risked. But he needs to be on it.
He should come back in, because he is an absolute hero. One of my favourite players, Chiellini. And as he's coming towards the end of his career, I just want to watch him play more before he does retire. Jonathan, I presume you're just all about whether former Sunderland defender Jason Denayer is playing.
Well, I assume he won't be. I assume he'll go with that 101-year-old back three that they played against Portugal.
It's a joke, that is.
But I mean, I wonder if that's why they sat deep, is that they looked so vulnerable to pace. They thought, well, we just can't leave any space in there. So even though it slightly undermines the effectiveness of their attacking midfielders, who are all injured anyway, maybe they have been forced to be a little bit more functional. But I sort of think that Lukaku, I mean, that's a great value of Lukaku. He can play in a team of pressers, or he can play in a team that sits off and be the lone front man. And that was the job he did, I thought, brilliantly against Portugal. That opening goal. He makes that 40-yard arcing run. Torgan Hazard plays it forward to him. Ruben Dias just sort of bounces off him, and his ball inside to De Bruyne is maybe slightly. I mean, we're talking like half a yard, maybe not even that. Maybe a foot too far in front of De Bruyne, and De Bruyne's touch then isn't great, and he's dispossessed. But just that initial incursion has meant that Portugal aren't set. So Belgium then regain possession. And as Torgan Hazard joins the attack, having played that initial pass, he's got, 6 yards of space in front of him. And that's what allows him to line up a shot. And that's all caused by Lukaku going in like a wrecking ball and creating the space. Now, he's obviously way, way, way more than that. But it's incredibly useful for him to have that. So normally you'd say, could he do it against an Italian defence? But we know he can, because he's been brilliant in Serie A for 2 years. So, if De Bruyne is out, which looks like he is, that's obviously a huge blow for Belgium, and maybe that does just tip it to Italy. But I think it's going to be a fascinating game, and actually a game I'm going to. So, I finally got my reward after doing a series of less than thrilling games, shall we say? And then, got Ukraine, Sweden to make my tournament debut in a stadium last night, and then this one I think is the pick of the quarterfinals. So delighted with that.
Yeah,
I did look into it in terms of Lukaku against Bonucci and Chiellini, because obviously he's played Juventus 5 or 6 times now, and he's only come up against them as a pairing once, and that was actually his highest rated performance for us in that fixture. It was the 2-0 win earlier this season, home win I think for Inter. And he didn't actually score, but he caused them a lot of problems. So, if there's one sort of player that can maybe unsettle, as much as Chiellini and Bonucci love a battle, a sort of 27, 28-year-old Lukaku against a 38-year-old Chiellini will be one to watch.
That's excellent research, Martin.
Thank you very much.
Got to credit you there. That is brilliant. Give us the combined 11 then. De Bruyne and Hazard, because they're both doubtful. Are they able to be picked still?
Left them out in the end. I think they've been confirmed as out now, as far as I know. I agree with Jonathan. I think that completely changes Belgium's tactic, or makes them deploy the same tactic. Ironically, even though they did it with those 2 players last time, they can't really afford to spring out as much as they maybe could before. So it's tight. We've done it based on international ratings this year again, just because there's too many players that have only made 2 appearances at the Euro. So it's
we're playing 4-3-1-2.
We are playing. We've had to play a 4-4-2. Very difficult because you love a 4-4-2. Very difficult because you're sort of completing a combined 11 of a team that plays with a back 3 and a team that plays with a back 4. So you're always going to be struggling. So you're fitting sort of round pegs in square holes, that sort of thing.
Just might bass it. That's the
exactly
best way, isn't it?
Exactly. So Donnarumma actually just pips Thibaut Courtois in terms of international ratings, and I guess that's understandable given that he didn't concede a goal for about 3 years. Meunier gets the right back. It is Chiellini and Vertonghen, the two centre backs.
Having that.
Two left-footed international.
No, thank you.
Statistical team, Dan. And then Spinazzola at left back, which you would expect. The issue, and I think this is the issue for both teams, is the right wing. They don't really have. Both teams are much stronger on their left side when they're at their best. At least Meunier is obviously a very good right wing back for Belgium. I'm not convinced by his club form, but he always turns up for Belgium. But we've obviously got him at right back. So the right wing, there wasn't really much choice, and it's Domenico Berardi who's actually had a bit of a tough tournament. Played well in the first game, but was very good in the run-up to the tournament. And that's the debate in the Italy team, I guess, is does Chiesa come in for Berardi?
Got to, surely. Got to.
I think Mancini will still see Chiesa as a perfect impact player, personally. I think he'll play the same team. Pessina as well, great impact player. A player that I didn't really know much about, if I'm honest. He's had a really good tournament. But yeah, Berardi on the right, Verratti and Jorginho in the middle, and Torgan Hazard on the left, and then Immobile, Lukaku up front. A tough one to make a combined 11, like I said, out of two completely different systems. Maybe we shouldn't have done
it. Yeah, I think I'd be playing a back three. I think it's easier to fit them in that way around. And that I wouldn't fancy Vertonghen in a back four these days.
Especially not next to 38-year-old also left.
Yeah, and also Torgan Hazard on the left side of midfield. It sort of feels a bit blockish. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy. I could take the rest of the two squads and put a team together and beat that lot.
That's an interesting one because Torgan Hazard actually got a better rating than Spinazzola for us in terms of league, in terms of international ratings this year. So if you did play a back three in ours, Spinazzola would have to miss out. So, like I said, both very strong on the left and not so much on the right.
Good to see the one that everyone wants as player of the tournament, Verratti, in there, though. That's what everyone wants to see, isn't it? So it's great to see him in the middle of the park. Well, I'm determined to make some time back after we went off on one at the start. So let's look at Switzerland v Spain. I'll give you 5 minutes, guys. Switzerland v Spain. Jonathan?
Well, I thought Spain looked really good against Croatia until Croatia started crossing the ball. And then it was like, oh, God, they're terrible. What's happened? I don't quite understand how... I mean, it's not like Aymeric Laporte's never seen a cross before, but... yeah, so I think Switzerland will think that... Seferovic. It seems one extra syllable in there. Seferovic could get some joy there. And I thought the way that Zuba, I thought particularly was excellent against France. Obviously playing against, certainly the first half, playing against wing backs who maybe weren't particularly comfortable with the system. They kept on getting into space and getting crosses in. So I mean, even in the second half, Zuba got forward and was instrumental in the comeback. So I think that Zuba Seferovic link up could be dangerous. Garancic coming off a bench as well, potentially, if they want a bit more heft and height, and plus Embolo kind of is, although he's a bit more mobile, he's big enough, he can win a header. So that would be my concern for Spain. I assume Spain will have 60% minimum of the ball, but I think Switzerland are very dangerous on the break, and the Swiss are in that sort of nice position now. They've exceeded all expectations. It's their first quarter-final any major tournament since 1954 when they were hosts. So in a sense, this is the greatest there's ever been for Switzerland. There's no pressure on them now. There's no, if they go out now, they've had a great tournament. If they go through, they've had a greater than great tournament. Whereas Spain, I think, still do feel that pressure. And even with the brilliant goal he got, Morata, is he still managed to miss 2 good chances after that goal. And but so temptation now is to sort of ease off of Morata and say, oh, he got his goal, he's fine. And obviously, the social media stuff and the threats to his family are despicable, and you have sympathy with him for that. But you can't deny the fact he's missed a lot of chances, and that is problematic from a football point of view. So he does a lot apart from that, and I can see why he's in the team. But it is a problem that you feel Spain have to create double the number of chances of any other team because you don't trust them to take any of them.
Yeah.
Mine, it kind of been a rebirth of Granit Xhaka. I feel like there's been a few times recently a player that I have never rated, just who I've gone on air and slated a number of times, just comes alive. He's doing well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's always been pivotal to Switzerland. They rate him incredibly highly. He's the leader in that team. Fair play to Switzerland overall, because I thought I've always found them quite dull. I've always found them. Obviously, they've been under Petkovic for 7 years now. They've played basically the same tactic for that entire time. And where going into it, I thought they looked like they just sort of never kicked on. They sort of never provided a shock result, which obviously they did against France. They never really looked capable of doing that. It's actually the sort of opposite that's happened, in that so many teams have gone into this tournament not really knowing their best way of playing. And Switzerland have played it for 7 years and more.
Except they have gone to a back three this tournament. That's the one change.
Yeah. But there's true. Haven't they played a back three for quite some time? I thought they played it for quite a while.
I think it's the last couple of years, I think they've gone to, I think they were a back four team, and so Ricardo Rodriguez has tucked in and now plays left side centre back rather than the left back.
Maybe.
I see what you're saying stylistically, though.
It's a change of shape rather than style.
They've always played the two sitters in midfield, and Shaqiri's the creative outlet, isn't it? And then you've always had Mbolo and Seferovic, who before this tournament have just never really convinced, and they've both been excellent. And I agree with Jonathan. I think crosses into the box for Switzerland in this game. And Zuber, another one who's come out of nowhere, can't really get a game for his club in Germany. He's got the most assists at the tournament now. I think he's got 4 assists.
Well, and nobody's ever got more than 4.
Yeah,
really? There's 3 other players. So Aaron Ramsey and Eden Hazard the last tournament, and then I think Drulovic in Euro 2000. I think they're the only other 3 who've got 4 assists ever in the Euros.
I guess Drulovic is the far more impressive one, because he did less games before, only recently changed to the sort of new format.
Well, and they got knocked out in the quarter-final, but this 4th game then. So
that is impressive. Yeah, but Zuber obviously a hat-trick of assists, didn't he, in that Turkey game, wasn't it? But yeah, they've just looked really threatening in every game they played. From personally going into it thinking they'd be a dull team to watch, I think they've been one of the most interesting teams to watch throughout, besides maybe that Italy game when they were outclassed. I think this is a game that potentially suits them quite well. And like Jonathan says, Spain just needs so many chances to score, and as the competition cranks up, they'll get less and less chances. So you're relying on Morata and co to actually be more prolific in front of goal, and that's, I think, where it will cost them ultimately. But I do see them scraping through this one, but I think it'll be...
I don't ruin it. Don't do the predictions yet.
I'm not doing a prediction. Not a scoreline. Not a scoreline anyway. But I think there'll be goals at both ends. I'll just put it that way.
Let's talk about Denmark and the Czech Republic then, Jonathan. Denmark, impressive, dispatched Wales with relative ease, but it was with complete ease. And they're the dark horses now, I would say. Yeah,
I guess they're not even that dark anymore, are they? They kind of in plain sight. The switch to a back three has done them a world of good. They've obviously got the emotional momentum behind them, and yes, they and the Czechs have both got that same thing of being in the quarterfinal. I guess maybe Denmark thought the quarterfinal is not an unrealistic target, but anything else is a massive bonus. So two back threes going up against each other. 2 physically big teams going up against each other. There is a danger that they cancel each other out, but I think could be... I've been really impressed by the Czechs. Having seen them at Wembley when they were dreadful, when they... was it 5-0, 5-1? 5-0. that first qualifier, the improvement since then is incredible. And I just like the way that what they do is, it's not complicated. They just do it really well. They're very simple shapes, very simple patterns, but they're good at it. And they have that physical heft behind them. The way the Tufal drove back at Van Aanholt in the game against the Dutch. So even, I mean, I know the red card obviously changed things, but it didn't change them that much. And I think, the thing you'd say about that red card is, had Chaluska been the one sent off, could you see the Czechs capitulating the way the Dutch did? They might have lost the game. They might have conceded one. They might have lost it on penalties. I can't see them just downing tools. So they go, oh, well, we can't possibly win this in the way that the Dutch did. So, yeah, I think they're a really impressive, dangerous unit, really dangerous with crosses, really dangerous with set plays, and very well drilled on the break as well. So I think a really awkward opponent.
Yeah, Martin, I think 5 draws in the last 6 meetings between these two teams. So there's a chance this one could go for the long haul.
Yeah, definitely. I think Denmark are the strong favourites for this, but yeah, like Jonathan says, Czech Republic have been good so far. And I think the game that they've lost against England, when they weren't impressive, you can almost write off because they didn't really care whether they came first or second.
And it was against England.
Exactly. Against the best team in the world. So what are you going to do? But yeah, that game had so many sort of factors around it that meant that they didn't really need to turn up. I don't think they sort of threw it in or anything like that. They went for it, but yeah, you can't really read that much into it. So maybe they look a bit long in the odds. I do think Denmark are the favourites. I think they're playing better and they have more threats. You are looking at Schick a lot of the time for the Czechs. Holeš and Souček have been good in midfield, but Denmark perhaps have a little bit more. But where Denmark are perhaps strong is that obviously they have moved to a back three, but they can play either way as well. Like I said, against Wales, they switched it, and that's what turned the game really. And they looked really comfortable in changing back to a 4. So tactically, they look well set up. Again, another team that I didn't expect to score a lot of goals, but have looked really, really good going forward in the absence of a player that people thought was the team were utterly reliant on in terms of goals. So Damsgaard obviously deserves a huge amount of credit for that. And Poulsen missed the last game, and Kasper Dolberg comes in and was excellent as well. So they've got players in front, and even Andreas Cornelius, looked like Messi coming off, a massive Messi coming off the bench. I think he completed 5 dribbles in about 10 minutes. And yeah, he looked really up for it. So they're clearly galvanised and sort of they've got this emotional sort of backing behind them that's really pushing them on. So they look a real threat. And as much as you don't want to sort of look ahead too much, I think a lot of people are looking at England's route to the final and saying this is really favourable. Denmark are a big threat to England, in my opinion. Obviously played them twice and drew 0-0 and won 1-0 Denmark. So don't count your chickens, England fans, whatsoever.
Dolberg's got a really his scoring record is very strange. So, he's got 9 international goals, but 4 of them have been braces.
Right. Wow.
So when he scores 1, he tends to score 2. So his first goal, I want to say, was against Kazakhstan, but I might be misremembering that, was his only single goal. Then he's had 4 times 2.
Interesting.
I don't know what that tells us.
Confidence player. Timo Werner was very much that case at Leipzig. In his last season at Leipzig, just tons of braces that really boosted his tally massively. So they're an interesting point. Strikers like that maybe don't score in as many games, but yeah, once they do get a goal, they just fill themselves with confidence, basically. So
yeah, won't be seeing you again, Timo Werner, because England have beat Germany. Won't be seeing you. Knocked you out. Won't be seeing you again. Let's finish then with our bet boost then, Martin. I think it went wrong, didn't it? Last round. I mean, I wasn't allowed anything, but it went wrong.
It did go wrong, yeah. I would say that Jonathan and I both got half of our bet right, so I'm rounding it up to 1 personally.
Talk us through it then, because I can't actually remember what happened.
Jonathan had Italy to win to 0, and they kept a clean sheet. So that's halfway there.
Yeah. And they did win the game.
Yeah, they did win the game. Not to 0 then, but and then I can't even remember what my bet was. Well, Denmark both teams to score, and Denmark scored 4. They scored all the goals for both teams. So yeah. No, it didn't go well.
No. Well, with that in mind, what have we got this week?
Well, we're going to base it on sort of predictions. We've not gone all out. Well, I've not gone all out, I should say. This is based on my own predictions of the teams to reach the semi-finals. And while we've seen not a lot of upsets, but some massive upsets in the last round, I'm struggling. I think we've taken them up for the next round. Personally, I'm struggling to see an underdog qualifying. I can see a couple of games going to extra time again. But yeah, I'm struggling to look beyond the 4 favourites, which is Italy against Belgium, Spain against Switzerland, Denmark against Czechs, and England against Ukraine. And BetVictor are best price for that on the market. They're 7-2 for all 4 of those teams to qualify. So not to win, to qualify. So if you think those 4 will be the semi-finalists, which, like I say, is the favourite, then that's 7-2.
I'm going to go against that. I'm going to go against that. I'm going to say Switzerland are going to knock Spain out.
Oh, okay.
That'll take it up. That'll take it up, I reckon.
That would, yeah.
I'm going to go for that. I'm going to back it. Jonathan, thoughts?
Purely because I think they're a little bit long. The Czechs against the Danes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably to qualify rather than to win outright, because I could see that going all the way, going to penalties.
Definitely.
I think that's what we're doing on, isn't it? The qualify.
Qualify, yeah.
Qualify. Yeah, we don't want to get caught out with the full-time result. We don't want to get caught out in that market. Interesting then.
It's interesting though that you've gone for those 2 as the ones that could potentially be upsets, and not Belgium. Like none of us fancy.
I just
Belgium.
don't think there's a huge amount of value there. I think that's the issue. I think that'll be a good game. I hope it's a good game, but it's Belgian injuries as well that sort of you start to think, well, it's very much reliant on Lukaku to do something.
Yeah.
I mean, to say that they naturally play through De Bruyne and they struggle when he's not there, that sounds like a criticism, but of course you would, because he's De Bruyne.
Yeah.
That's why I have my suspicions about Belgium.
Yeah, a bit like Scotland with no Billy Gilmour. if you got your creative player out, I feel sorry for Billy Gilmour now, because he actually is a really good player, but I feel the need to mention him every 5 minutes on the podcast now. Anyway, I think that does us. It's been a pleasure to look back on the England game and a pleasure to preview the quarterfinals with you. We'll be back next week, won't we, Martin, with the semi-final preview?
We will indeed. Monday, I believe. Yeah.
Monday record. So yeah, look forward to that.
Touch wood, I'm in a new flat by then.
Yeah,
good luck with the move, Jonathan.
We'll get a new background. We'll get a new background from you.
Yeah. I think it's going to be quite plain to start with.
There we go. I'm looking forward to that.
Get your St George flag up, Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, let's hope we're talking about England and the St George flag on Monday now. I don't want to beat Germany and they get knocked out by the Ukraine. That would be absolutely horrendous, but would also feel quite typical. Thanks ever so much to the guys for joining me, and thanks for tuning in as well. If you are enjoying the podcast, then make sure you're giving it a like and a comment below. And to find out when it's coming out next, even though we've already just told you, subscribe with your post notifications on and you will not miss a single show. Take care.